Hi. Hello again, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see. So there's a couple things I always mention before, if anyone has any questions or not. But obviously, the movie was finished in 2007. There's about 550 leagues now, not the 150 that this says. And a big difference in the way that the game is played now is that they don't allow any sort of fighting, any sort of like that kind of stuff. There's a few of the 500 leagues that play by their own rules, but for the most part, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. And let's see, in a little bit, at 9 o'clock, we're going to show Total Badass, so I hope you all hang out for that, although you will be defiled and perverted mentally and physically if you do, just so you're warned. If that's enticement, then please take it as that. Did anybody have any questions or anything about the flick?
Yeah, this is more of a technical question, but what's the big game to have in a bank track?
For the women that like the bank track, they like that it creates speed in and of itself. It creates a force going around the corners. They like to be able to go over the rail. You know, it's sort of more of a spectacle thing, I think, from their point of view. Now, flat trackers, I'm certain, would argue the other end of that would be that, like, on a flat track, you can get a derby gal knocked right in your lap. You know, you can be right on top of the action. There's not a barrier separating you. So I think there's about 4 bank track leagues in the U.S. that I'm aware of. LA, I think there's one in Oklahoma. There's definitely one in Austin. There's one in Seattle. And there might be one in Arizona, or another one in Southern California if the San Diego team does that. But all the rest are flat track. And obviously, you don't have to build a flat track. You know, you just need a flat place. The bank track costs, I've heard, $20,000 to $30,000, and then you got to ship it, house it. So it's a logistical nightmare, sort of. There was a question back here?
Well, I think you answered it indirectly. The Bay Bombers here in the Bay Area play at Keys Arthur Pavilion. Are they on the bank track?
Yes, sir. In fact, the bank track that the women here purchased, they bought from the Bay Bombers. And we interviewed Tim Patton, too, for the movie, but it ended up being just about this group. And, you know, as you're filming a documentary, you kind of find it as you're doing it. And so we kind of had to abandon, like, a bigger picture of Derby itself in favor of just looking at what this group is doing. And it happens to be Derby, in a sense. Yes, ma'am?
I thought it was an amazing movie.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
We're really Derby fans from the 70s.
Nice.
And kind of lost track of it. Getting ready to get back here and put some of these games locally. It seems like roller derby has really struggled. I had no idea there were always so much competition, but roller derby as a whole, you really don't hear about it. I wonder if you could say, if I'm correct about that, why is such a struggle now for roller derby to kind of get going?
Well, we interviewed several old timers from the 50s and 60s and guys, men and women who played it in that era. And depending on who you ask, even then, there was not really ever money in Derby. You know, Ann Calvello was one of the marquee names of old school Derby. There was a documentary about her called Demon of the Derby about 5 years ago. And she was like pushing carts back, you know, like in a store. You know, if you've seen Jam, you know, you see those old the old guys from that, like they're all struggling too. I think there's probably many reasons. Some would say that it's owner greed. You know, of course, that's always an easy one to lob out there. But also, you have an organization that's like 60 or 80 people. It's difficult to spread the money around unless you're just really bringing in huge crowds like NFL style or something like that. Most of these leagues are the skaters pay dues, so they pay money to participate in it. However, Seattle just had like almost 7,000 people at their championship game, so I'm certain that I would assume those Seattle women are not paying dues. But I really don't know about that. But yeah.
I was thinking, like, you know, baseball and football, it took like 20 or 30 years before they developed into like what they are, is what we recognize now in terms of like league play and things like that.
Yeah.
How much do you feel that like, roller derby, is it still developing, evolving, or is it starting to settle down into what you think it will be for a while to come?
I think they're still refining the rules. It mentioned on this title card near the end, the Women's Flat Track Derby Association was, because there were so many leagues and everyone kind of tweaked the rules themselves, and then they wanted to play each other, so they had to have a governing body that unified the rules. And that's really changed Derby too, because now they have a national ranking system, they have tournaments, national championships, which I think this year will now just be called the Derby Championships because they're allowing teams from other countries in. It continues to shock and impress me. You know, when we were editing, it took about 1.5 years to edit. You know, there were 30 leagues when we started editing. There were 150 leagues when we finished editing. And then today there's 550 leagues. So, I mean, it's all over. It's in Europe, it's in Australia, New Zealand, I believe Japan, South America, Sao Paulo, I think has a team. Like, so I wouldn't even go out on a limb to even guess, you know. I know there are women that would love to see it in the Olympics. So, who knows? Yeah.
How did you get in on the bass stuff? Were you just the right place, the right time? or-
Kind of right place, right time sort of thing. I had another documentary that I was attempting to get going that fell apart on this one day, and that same night I went to a bar, and there, I saw women on skates that I knew. And I was like, hey, I was going to film something. That's something. I didn't know it would take 6 years to do, so obviously. Yeah, question for the peanut gallery.
What was the other documentary you were gonna do about? I had never heard that
You haven't
story.
heard this?
No,
Chad's
no.
been on tour with me for
No.
20 days. He's
Well, just out of
heard all these
curiosity,
stories.
just out of curiosity, what was
If
the other
anyone was
documentary?
curious, it was about Hassel Adkins, this crazy hillbilly one-man band who was the godfather of one-man bands. His story is he heard Hank Williams on the radio, and Hank Williams had a band, but the DJ just said, that was Hank Williams. And so he was like, how the hell did he play all those instruments? So, and he's now passed on, but he was the godfather of all the one-man bands. Like every town has a crazy one-man band in it. But yeah, that'll look good on our video blog. It'll be just as precise as my other ones. he's the subject of Total Badass, so he's a kind of a dick. I was playing. I'm sorry. Did anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Not so much a question, it's just a comment. It seems to me that, obviously there's continuity with the older, but this strikes me as a whole new thing. And what you're talking about are the growing pains of a kind of essentially new sport.
Yeah.
With all kinds of grassroots enthusiasm and with all the problems associated with people getting involved and but it seems on the whole that this is a real huge, this is tapping into some, cultural need.
Yeah.
There's something there, something's happening.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's growing pains right now.
Yeah.
And it is a new thing. There's never been a flat track roller derby, so just technically that's new. And that was out of necessity. Like they wanted to do bank track, and they were just like, we gotta get moving, so they did the flat track. But I'll be very curious to see how it continues to grow. You know, and one thing too is that when they resurrected Derby, if you will, they did it in the vision of what they thought Derby was. In 2000 and 2001, when they were putting the sport back together, there wasn't the internet. You couldn't just go watch. You couldn't go find old roller derby. So it seemed more sexualized, I think, in a lot of people's heads. And so when they resurrected it, they brought in that, and then of course they ramped up, with the names and the outfits and stuff like that too.
That's incredible.
It does make it fun. Everybody's got two names. Well, cool. Yes, here.
Just wondering how comfortable was everyone with your filming? Like, was it like, did they gradually get used to it, or?
Yeah, they were pretty comfortable with us. I knew several of them from the music scene, from the Austin Arts Underground scene. We used very small cameras. We never provoked anyone. We would never, if I were interviewing you, I would tell you this. I would say, I'm not going to use your answers to create a question for this person. And so when I interviewed you, you never heard me say, well, Sally said this, And so when the split was happening, we had built up a year and a half of trust, and they kind of wanted their story told at that time, even though they knew it was maybe bad, or it wouldn't always be flattering to them. They're like, well, this is what we believe in what we're doing. And so they told us everything. I mean, the sad part was that during the split when it was happening is that we knew everything. We knew everything that this camp was doing, and we knew everything that camp was doing. But we couldn't say a word. That was not our role. We hadn't interfered with anything. We were trying to maintain objectivity. Part of it was sad in the sense that maybe we could have prevented the split. Maybe that wouldn't be the best thing, Maybe the split was the best thing that could have happened, That's not like I'm all crazy about fate and destiny or anything like that, but it just wasn't our role. But everyone's doing great, Derby's blowing up, so worked out pretty cool. Well, thanks everyone for coming. I think we got to wrap this up. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to talk to you, but we got to get ready for the next flick. If you're hanging out for it, please do. If you'd like to buy a copy of the DVD or need some free rubbers or stickers, and sell posters too. Thanks, everybody.